Hi everyone, we are going to be covering chapter 2, which is about the nervous system. We're going to be talking about the overall nervous system in the human body. We're also going to be talking about the cellular structure of the neurons and how they transmit information, as well as the brain, of course. This is a really hefty chapter, so I want to give you a heads up, but I'm going to break it down into different sections and we will get started. Before we actually start with any of the notes, I'd like you to go ahead and watch the video. They're made out of meat. It's a little weird, a little strange. It does have some bad language, but I'm pretty sure you're mature enough to handle it. But it's really hilarious, and I think it'll make you think differently about the information that we're going to be covering with this chapter, particularly when we get to the brain. So go ahead and watch that, and then come on back. All right, so we're going to be starting off talking about the overall nervous system. We're going to be talking about the organization and the functions of our peripheral nervous system, and here we go. All right, so overall, we have our central nervous system and our peripheral nervous system. These are the two major components that allows us to transmit information in our body. The central nervous system is typically what we think of when we're talking about neuroscience and the nervous system, especially as humans, and that's because it consists of the brain and our spinal cord. So the brain is what sits in our head, of course, and the spinal cord exits from the bottom of our brain and it goes all the way down our back to just above our butts, and that is our spinal cord. And then outside of that, any of the nervous system that's outside the brain and the spinal cord is considered the peripheral nervous system. And that has two components. We have our somatic nervous system and we have our autonomic nervous system. I'm going to be breaking those down a little bit more and explaining what those do in just a moment. In our autonomic nervous system, we have two branches. We have our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system. And these two work together hand in hand to accomplish our day-to-day tasks. And again, I'm going to go through this a little bit more later on. So again, our two major components are our central nervous system, which is our brain and spinal cord, the peripheral nervous system, which is our somatic nervous system, and autonomic nervous system. Somatic will be abbreviated as SNS, and then our autonomic nervous system will be abbreviated as ANS. So the somatic nervous system carries messages from our sensory organs and our skeletal muscles back to our central nervous system. So somatic comes from the root word soma. Soma means body. So these are the sensory systems of the body, and it actually moves our body around. And it controls our voluntary behavior. So if you clap your hands, or if you're dancing, or I'm talking, this is all things that I'm doing voluntarily. And this is our somatic nervous system. You can control this. You can control these outward signs of your body's movements. And so that's all part of that voluntary behavior of our somatic nervous system. Again, remember soma means body. It's going to come back a whole bunch of times in this course. The somatic nervous system also branches out into our cranial nerves. So this is the part of the peripheral nervous system that transmits commands for voluntary movement from our central nervous system, again, that spinal cord in our brain, to the muscles and brings sensory input back into our central nervous system for further processing. So if you reach your arm out and, I don't know, you pick up a cup, that is your somatic nervous system, and then the information about, how heavy that cup is, or if it's full of liquid or empty, that's going to go back up through that somatic nervous system, back into your central nervous system of your spinal cord, and then back to your brain for that processing. So between your parts of your spine, between your vertebrae, you have 31 pairs of spinal nerves that branch out and they cover your torso and limbs. So if we go back a couple pictures, you'll see these little branches coming out from your spinal cord. If you ever look at the anatomy of your back, you have all these little discs that sit on top of each other, these little donuts, and they're cushioned by little discs of cartilage. These are the vertebrae discs, and that's where, between the sections of bone in that cartilage, is where our nerves actually branch out. So that's why when someone says they have a slip disc, it means that got out of place or it got smushed, through damage, an accident or something like that. And that can put a lot of pressure on those nerves and cause tingling, numbness, pain, things like that. That's why we have to really protect our backs, especially our higher level area of our back, so closer to our neck. Also coming out of this, the very bottom of your brain is what's called your cranial nerves. Cranium, meaning your head. They serve your head, neck, and some of our internal organs. So if you look here at this image, if you go to number 1 here, that's our olfactory smell that comes up from the base of our brain, and that goes into our nasal cavity so we can smell. The second one goes to our optic nerve, which is for vision. Then number 3, 4, and 6 looks like these all have to do with the movement of your eyes back and forth, up and down. Number 5, it has to do with touch, pain, in your jaw muscles, so feeling things in your mouth and in your jaw. Number 7 is your facial muscles, so being able to move your face, lift your eyebrows, kind of smile or frown. All of that is your facial muscles. Number 8 is your auditory, hearing, and balance sense. We're going to talk about more in chapter 4. And then number 9 is your throat. So glossopharyngeal is essentially the part inside your throat that allows food to pass or stops up your esophagus so that you can breathe, your sense of taste, and then the muscles in your throat and larynx. Your larynx is your voice box. And then number 10 is your vagus nerve. That kind of is your internal organs that have to do with your sense of digestions and things like that. So if your stomach feels empty or you're starting to feel butterflies in your stomach, that's your vagus nerve. And then you also have number 11, which has to do with spinal accessory and neck muscles, so moving your neck muscles around. And then 12 is hypoglossal and tongue movement. So this is your larynx, your throat box, your windpipe, you probably heard of that, and your tongue, so you can talk. So there's a bunch of these nerves, and they're really, really important. We gotta protect these. So again, here's our spinal cord. Here you see the bones, the vertebrae, and they're like the little donuts, and then between them are little thin cartilage donuts, and they actually cushion the nerves. And out between those donuts of cartilage, we get our nerves that actually come out. So these 31 pairs of spinal nerves exit between the bones, and the sensory information branches out throughout your entire body and can carry motor commands to your muscles and back. So if someone tickles the palm of your hand and you have to and you close your fingers, that information is all passing through the peripheral nervous system, your somatic nervous system, and that sensory information is going up through your body, through your arm, into your spine, with these between your vertebrae, and going up to your brain for processing. On the other hand, we have the autonomic nervous system. This controls our internal organs and glands. Autonomic, it kind of sounds like automatic. It means that it's self-governing. We don't have control over this. So for example, our heart rate, digestion, perspiration, a lot of our reflexes are autonomic. They controlled. So if I put a really bright light in your face or I flash my camera flash at you, you're going to blink your eyes. And that's that automatic response. You can't really control your heart rate directly. Can't control your digestion, perspiration. You don't have to think about your heart beating. You don't have to think about breathing. It's automatic. It happens automatically. So that's our autonomic nervous system. And this has 2 subcomponents. It's our sympathetic and parasympathetic branches. Your sympathetic branch is your fight or flight response, and that activates the body to fight off a stressor. And your parasympathetic branch quiets the body down afterwards. So here's a really nice, I know it's a very complicated diagram, but the autonomic nervous system, again, with the 2 parts. On the left, we're going to have our sympathetic fight or flight response, and on the right, we have our parasympathetic and our quieting response on the right. So let's focus on the left-hand side, the sympathetic side first. So let's say you're walking down the breezeway on campus, and all of a sudden, a tiger jumps out at you. And you're like, holy crap. You have to decide almost immediately, are you going to run away from this thing, or are you going to fight away this tiger? Or did I say lion? Whatever. Tiger, let's go with. So what's going on is that your pupils will dilate. So your pupils actually get a little bit larger. They want to take in more light and more information. You're going to stop salivating. Your heart rate will accelerate. You'll feel your heart beating. Your airway actually relaxes, so it opens up a little bit more. Your lungs will begin to open. It's called bronchial relaxation. Your body will stop digesting the food, so everything, if you just ate, it's gonna feel really heavy in your stomach. It'll contract your bladder, so you may pee yourself. And as it says on the bottom, it will stimulate an orgasm if it's the right type of stress. Probably not a tiger. But other types of fight, flee responses will increase arousal. So let's say you decide to run away, you get inside a building, you are away from the tiger, and you are safe. Now your body has to calm itself down. It can't stay at that hyperactivated mode for very long. So your parasympathetic branch has to kick on. It will contract your pupils, stimulate your salivation. Your heart rate will begin to slow. Your lungs get back to normal size, and your digestion will start. And your body just will relax. And so you've probably felt this in smaller ways. So if you've ever had a big game or a meet that like a track meet or something that you're going to be doing, you might have felt that stress. Your heart rate's accelerating. You'll feel like that tightness in your stomach or your bladder. If you're a person who like runs races, you may actually have to pee a couple times before the race begins. Or if you have to give a speech in one of your classes, you're going to feel like that flutter in your heart and in your stomach. You may have some digestive upset. If you just had lunch, you may feel really heavy and you kind of feel sick, like you're going to vomit. That's all part of that sympathetic nervous system. But then afterwards, you're like, oh, it's over. And you're all like happy and loose and you feel good afterwards. And that's that parasympathetic branch kicking on. So it's kind of like a seesaw or teeter-totter. They have to kind of balance back and forth. You don't want to be too hyped up on the sympathetic branch if you don't need to be. But if you need it, you do want to go up. But then afterwards, you have to come back down. You don't want to go too far. Others might fall asleep. So you have to kind of balance throughout the day that sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. But there's times when you want that sympathetic branch to be higher, and other times you want the parasympathetic branch to be higher. And they will balance themselves out throughout the day automatically. So your sympathetic nervous system, or somatic nervous system, and autonomic nervous system have to work together. So let's imagine you're going to go to a haunted house. You're probably voluntarily walking down the pathway. That is your somatic nervous system. You're just walking along willingly. You've entered the haunted house willingly. But you begin to get scared, and your breathing and heart rate are going to increase. Maybe you're waiting for something to happen, and then when something jumps out at you like a clown or something, you get startled, and that's that autonomic nervous system, your sympathetic branch kicking on. Maybe you punch the clown, so that's part of that fight response, but also voluntary movement, your somatic nervous system. But then you leave, you can calm down your breathing, so your autonomic nervous system again is working, but this time it's the parasympathetic branch. And then maybe you get angry at your friend for letting you go in there. So that's how the two main parts of the peripheral nervous system work together. All right, so I'm going to stop here for now, and then next time we're going to be talking about neurons and neurotransmission.